Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz here with the absolute best way to complete something that isn't. And that is when one genius composer works on the incomplete work of another genius composer. Now, we've all been through it, haven't we? You've got like the completion of Mahler's 10th, you've got the completion of Bruckner's Ninth, you've got all kinds of people who try to finish things that composers never finish. There's the completion of Elgar's Third. There's the computer doing the completion of Beethoven's 10th. Ugh, what a mess that's turning out to be. It's all just a huge waste of time. And the reason it's a huge waste of time is because, at least for the most part, music is messy. Right? Every case is an individual thing, and you have to take them one at a time. But usually it's a mess for a very, very simple reason. The reason is that the people who do the completions, however well-versed they are in the style of the composer, you've got, Robert Levin doing Mozart completions. And they're very good. I mean, these are very, very bright, intelligent people who work very, very hard and with great dedication. But here's the thing. The one thing universally missing from every single completion I have ever heard is an unabashed stroke of original genius. Something that we could have counted on the composer to actually do. All you're going to get if someone else does it is dutiful pastiche, because as a first sort of, step in doing the completion, they have to be able to write in the style of the composer. And the style of the composer is the average of what that composer might have done on any given day. Something that sounds like other things the composer did. Whereas a great work by a composer is new. I mean, a composer of genius does surprising, unexpected things. And that is precisely what you will never, ever, ever hear in a completion by somebody else. All you'll get is average. Same old, same old. Now, composers have wonderful styles. We may like what they do. They may be fascinating, all of those things. And people can master those styles very, very well. But what they cannot do is give us anything new or fresh or original. And so as a result of that, these completions always, in my mind, fall short, one way or another. But there is one exception, one marvelous, fabulous exception. One of the composers who is completed more than just about anybody is Schubert, because Schubert left a mess of stuff. Partial piano sonatas, partial symphonies, sketches for things flying all over the place. He just dripped music and then he died. And so he left behind a huge mass of paperwork that people can go to work on and write fake Schubert. And some of this fake Schubert is really quite good. Some of it is actually all Schubert, and is depending on what you have to do, like the orchestration of the grand duo. I mean, we have the complete grand duo for two pianos, and so making it into a symphony works beautifully because it's all Schubert, and it's just a question of orchestration. And that orchestration can sound more or less Schubertian, but it works either way, because you just have to have a sense of what the orchestral style of the period was, and maybe a few of Schubert's own quirks, like tucking trombones into odd places now and again, and voila, you have a Schubert symphony. But it's 100% Schubert, so that's okay. Well, but there are all these other Schubert symphonies that exist in various forms of incompletion, or sketches for them, or movements, or things, or whatnot, and not just the famous unfinished symphony. There is what we call Symphony Number 10, which exists in a pretty substantial body of orchestrated and other sketches that various people have attempted to complete, all with varying degrees of unsuccess. And I know some people disagree with this. Some people like to hear it because the completions are invariably pleasant. They're nice. They get the job done in a basic sort of way. But that doesn't interest me as much as Berio's rendering. Now, this is what you ought to do. I think, with an unfinished work. Berio was a splendid composer, a 20th century avant-garde composer, somebody whose style could not have been more different from Schubert's, and he makes no secret of it. So what is rendering? Well, rendering is a 34-minute, it's long. It's 3 movements. It incorporates, I'm looking here, virtually all of the music that Schubert wrote for his unfinished 10th Symphony in the more or less in the way Schubert wrote it, and it fills in the gaps, not with fake Schubert, but with Berio's own music. And his own music in this case, these interludes are very dreamy interludes for strings and celesta in a completely atonal style. And so the result, I think, is unbelievably haunting and a completely new and unique and fresh and visionary work in which Schubert's ideas are set in a context, a somewhat dreamy stream of consciousness context from one section to the next, with no effort whatsoever being made to fill in the gaps with faux Schubert. The gaps are the gaps. Berio celebrates the gaps with a wholly different kind of music. And it's just a work of genius. It's a brilliant, wonderful, wonderful work. This recording, it's been recorded like 3 or 4 times already, which is kind of remarkable given what it is a fabulous performance. It's with the Orchestre de Paris under Christoph Eschenbach on the Ondine label, and it contains Stanze, which is Berio's last completed work, which was written for Eschenbach. And these forces, that's essentially a song cycle based on some of Berio's favorite poetry, and the words and text are included here, and you can listen to that separately. That is more standard avant-garde Berio, where you can sometimes understand the words and sometimes not, and you sort of read the poem and just listen to what he does with it. It's for let's see, baritone and a male choir, or at least the French Army chorus. And in this particular case, here, the bottom line is, I'm here to talk about rendering, really, because every recording of rendering has different couplings. And Berio recorded it himself for RCA, actually, if you can still find it. It's one of the things that I think demonstrates, A, the futility of making a completion of something a composer didn't finish, and B, the fabulousness of what can happen when 2 great composers come together to create a unified work of art that celebrates the fragmentary nature of what was left, while at the same time doing something totally new and fresh with it. It supplies that stroke of genius, that mark of newness that Schubert undoubtedly would have put into it had he lived to finish it, but which he didn't, and so we get it from somebody else. And I think that's really, really cool. So the work is rendering, and it's by Berio. You'll find it under Berio, and it's Berio/Schubert. And what a wonderful way to hear what Schubert actually finished in conceiving his 10th Symphony. It's just fabulous. It's one of the most haunting and effective kinds of pieces you've ever heard in your life. And I recommend it very, very strongly. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.